Your brother told us how you be all into reading and shit. Hey, that's some real good shit. Congratulations.
Did you just congratulate me for reading?
All right, here we are again. Another Lethal Introspection Crew episode.
Yes.
Woo!
This one is quite the labor of love, really, because the first time we did it a couple weeks ago, it got completely deleted.
Yeah, we have to redo this, but we're back.
Yeah.
Wiser.
Stronger. Probably more virile. At least myself.
Would you say virile?
Virile, for sure. Just, getting deeper and deeper into my maturity. But, yeah, we're going to talk about today our top 5 most existential pieces of media as far as the spectrum from movies to books and pretty much everything in between in terms of 5 things. So should we just get started right away?
Yeah.
All right. Well, the first top category will be movies. You want to start us off with your selection?
Sure. All right. I think my number one movie, as far as existential piece of work, would have to be Inception.
We create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their secrets.
Then you break in and steal it.
Well, it's not strictly speaking legal.
It's a great film. It has Leonardo DiCaprio in it, and it introduces the idea of dreams within a dream.
Right.
And I found that really crazy because I think that was the first existential movie that really opened my eyes to this genre. After that, I was like trying to actively find movies that were really similar to
Supplement that?
Yeah, because I just remember being so engrossed by that movie, and I was actually studying abroad in Kenya at the time. So it was really cool. I think the big thing is just that how they framed it in a way where you have these concepts of, okay, what is reality and what is not reality, and how the dreams are so real to the point that you're always questioning if you're in the real reality or not, and how do you distinguish? At the end, there's that really famous scene at the end where you find Leonardo DiCaprio spinning his top one more time to figure out if it's real or not.
Look who's here.
And I always thought about that over and over. I was like, man, did he make it? Did he not? Does it matter? At the end of the day, does it matter? That's the thing I think they were trying to say with that movie, where it's like recently I've come to the understanding, or at least where I am currently accepting, is that you can't ever truly know. This could always be another layer that has more detail.
Yeah, your phenomenology can always be lying to you in terms of what it means for it to be base reality.
Right.
And I think you're entirely right. The movie speaks for itself in terms of its existentialist quandaries, because I agree. Who can say that this is actual base reality, and at the end of the day, does it even really matter? If we're striving here too, isn't that what we would be doing in real reality anyways?
Right.
So no matter how you want to cut it, it could always be either a training exercise for the real thing, or it is the real thing and you're taking it as seriously as you possibly can. You can't lose. You can't lose as long as you go the right way.
Yeah, as long as you're experiencing it, it's always real to you.
Right. Because in the movie, the guy, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, I don't remember his name, but he does all of his training for the main lady that he's training in the dreams. All of the training happens in the dream. All of the learnings happen in the dreams. So because of that, it reinforces the fact that just because it's illusory per se doesn't necessarily mean that you can't take something out of it that can manifest itself through the multiplicity of realities.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting, their whole use of totems. I thought that was the coolest thing, where you try to anchor an experience to know the difference between two layers of experience, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea of anchors, or totems, if you haven't seen the movie, they would use an object which they, in the real world, as I like to call their base reality, they would make it so, say, like, if you wanted your totem to be some dye, it would be weighted in the real world, right? Because if you're in someone's dream, they would just make dye act normal.
Right.
And I think a big part, spoilers, a big part of that movie was realizing that Leonardo DiCaprio's character, he introduces you to the idea of totems with his explanation of his own totem, but he breaks the rules right away because he tells you, you can't tell anybody about your totem. And as soon as he says that, he's explaining to his trainee how his totem works. And then furthermore, while I was watching that movie, I was thinking, like, how can his totem work when he tells the audience, he tells, the trainee, that this totem was Mel's, his wife.
His wife, yeah.
Right.
There's no transitioning of totems, right? Everyone
right.
has
You
to have their
can't.
unique
Yeah.
one.
How can someone else's totem work for you, right? So already it was kind of messed up. And then also his totem, I think you're watching at the end of that movie, hoping his totem falls, and you've totally lost, just like in a dream, knowing that, if you're in a really real dream, there's certain things that are out of place, but you ignore them. So in the whole movie, you realize you've been in a dream the whole movie, because his totem acts normal. His totem acts like how you would expect every totem to act in the real world, to fall over. So you're waiting for this totem to fall over to tell him he's in the real world. But that's not what a totem's supposed to do. It's supposed to act abnormally in the real world.
Right.
So the whole time, it was already screwed up.
Okay.
So that kind of goes back to my...
If you look closely, the story kind of gives you the answer.
Right.
Like a veiled answer throughout the whole story.
Exactly.
Some good stuff, Christopher Nolan.
It depends on what are you going to accept.
Yeah.
So...
Oh,
yeah.
man. Well,
honorable mention to The Matrix for similar reasons.
Right. Yeah. Oof. That's a whole movie. That's a whole tangent in and of itself, right there.
Another real world, is it real or is it not kind of trip. But I think I was way too young to appreciate The Matrix when I watched it.
Yeah,
I was just watching the Kung Fu
when I first watched it.
Yeah.
Because I started watching it in that area when he comes out of like the pod. Mm-hmm. I remember being like 8 years old, so and then the big robot comes and like sticks him in the neck, and I'm like, what is happening here? Why do people watch this?
I think I deleted those parts from my 8-year-old experience and just
took the Kung Fu?
I just took the Kung Fu. I mean, he was dodging bullets. Like, that was the coolest thing ever. It was only later when I watched that movie in earnest, and I was just like, whoa, they're saying something here.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that was mine. What's yours, Jose?
My favorite existential movie has got to be Gattaca.
In the not-too-distant future, our DNA will determine everything about us. A minute drop of blood, saliva, or a single hair determines where you can work, who you should marry, what you're capable of achieving.
This is a movie that a lot of you have probably seen if you've gone to high school biology in the United States. It's one that they're really keen on showing nowadays, which I'm really glad for because I love it.
That's where I saw it, actually.
Yeah, the first time. The reason why I like this movie so much is because it's so close to the realities that we live in today. I don't know if a lot of people are really well versed in the advances that genetic modification programs such as CRISPR are doing and how they're advancing, but we're getting to the point that we can begin genetically modifying both ourselves and future generations, and that's what Gattaca is essentially examining. In their reality, this whole process of creating modified, genetically defined babies has already been going on for at least a generation or two. And the people that are still born in what we consider the natural way, which they call godchildren, is you just born from a mom and a dad, and you just let the genetic variances fly, however the dice may lay, as we do now, for the most part. Well, the issue comes from the fact that the protagonist is a godchild, and he is a person that has to then be scrutinized as a second-class citizen because of that. Because although there is no written aptitude test that will tell you what exactly you're capable for, they have been able to discern through precedent of other people and stuff, what your genetic predispositions can actually allow you to do. They can tell whether you're going to be fit to be an astronaut, whether you're going to be fit to be a doctor, a police chief. Those are just the kind of things that they showcase in the movie. And then people that don't have any sort of genetic prevalence in one area or another, they're relegated to just janitorial jobs, things that are just banal and require repetition all of the time. And unfortunately for the protagonist, he has dreams, and he has big dreams. He has the dreams of wanting to become an astronaut, to go off and explore the moon of Titan, Saturn's moon of Titan. And in that movie, he decides to become what they call a degenerate, which is somebody who takes a loan from a person with a higher genetic echelon makeup, and pretty much steals or takes their identity and then pretends to be them in order to be able to move forward in the socio-economic ladder.
So this was an established practice, or people have done this before by the time.
Exactly. In the
so
movie,
they give him the name Degenerate.
Degenerate.
I see the play on
Exactly.
words.
Yep.
I see.
Yep. And in it, there are already black market specialists that can go about, and they come over, they check you out, they look at your height and who you look like, and then they try to match you to whoever could possibly be closest to both your look, so that way they can, you can run across without raising too many alarms, and also that they can modify you to look like them as well. One really gruesome part of the movie, and one that really showcased the protagonist's desire to complete his dreams, was the fact that he was a couple inches shorter than the man, Jerome, who was the more apex person. So he had to literally break his shins and extend them in order to be able to, and he just had to lay there in order to be able to get those extra inches and make the rest. See, that's the thing, is that it's an existentialist movie in the sense that there are high levels of obstacles, and the world is in itself against you. But even then, you come to understand that, and instead of you just falling into the hole of despair, you decide that you're going to get claws. You're going to take out the claws and start climbing out of that hole. And that's exactly what the guy did. He had no scruples. He didn't care how many times he had to lie, the aspects in which he had to lie. He genuinely faked it till he made it.
He was super clean in that movie too.
Ethan Hawke got that. Jude Law, beautiful man in that movie.
How many inches did he get from that?
I think it was like 2-3 inches. Yeah.
I think I'd break my legs for 2-3 inches.
2-3 inches? Yeah, hey, for sure. They just make the point that Jerome, he's really questioning whether this guy can actually do what he's saying. But the moment that he saw him just laying on the floor, he never questioned him again. That was one of the big turning points in the movie. And if anybody has never seen this movie, I would say go watch it and see if you can find any points of contention in what I'm saying, because I doubt it. This movie speaks so highly to what it means to have the quote-unquote human spirit, because it showcases that although you have all of the potential, the genetic potential that is necessary, without the actual will and desire to move forward in your aspirations, you will never get anywhere.
It reminds me of the saying, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, in a sense. You know what's really interesting about that movie is it's a really old one, right?
Like 1997.
1997. So
old now.
By 19, yeah, right. Classics. By 1997, I think the Human Genome Project was still underway, and you can imagine when they were right. Yeah. When they were shooting this, actually, it hadn't been complete, but there was this whole arrogance in the scientific community about the Human Genome Project. It seemed like they had gotten to a precipice where they felt like, okay, we're going to catalog all these genes, and then we're going to know everything about everything.
And we got it, baby.
And we've got it. Like, we figured we cracked God's code of how to make everything.
God.
Right. And then the results came back like 2001 or something. And then they found out, well, there's like 25,000 genes in a human, and that's it. And then a chimpanzee and a human have the same amount, and then a chicken has like 2,000 less genes.
Yeah.
And then they're like, what the hell? Like, how do we get this like a whole different being, especially something as way more complex from a chicken versus a human being, by the disparity of only 2,000 genes?
That's really interesting, and a joke that Neil deGrasse Tyson always likes to make, because the discrepancy that you're talking about is only big relativistically, because we look at ourselves and we look at a chicken and we're like, oh, we're nothing like that creature.
Yeah.
But if a creature that came from perhaps a different evolutionary line from a different planet were to look at us, be like, you guys are pretty much like the same. Like, I can't even look at you without seeing the same thing. Imagine that, right? In the same way that some people can say that they can't tell the difference between, like, say, squirrels. You can't tell the difference between one squirrel and another, but I'm sure each squirrel can tell the difference between themselves and the hierarchies that they have within themselves. You're like, this is big squirrel, that's little squirrel. But that's completely alien to us.
I could see that. I could see that argument. I guess when I think about that whole thing, it seemed to me to show that there's always more. You know, we've only touched the iceberg, like the tip of the iceberg,
yes.
On what it means to be, and like the difference between different forms of being, I guess.
One thing I would say,
especially because it seemed like I brought up to you before we started this that I was reading this book called The Biology of Belief, and he was bringing up this whole thing.
Who was the name of the author?
His name is Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Okay.
And he basically notes that the thing that they noticed after a while, after this huge, it was like a big failure for the scientific community, because they expected to know, like, once we've got all the genes, we've cataloged them, we'll know exactly what to do. Where they found out there was even just more of a mystery now.
Just crack one code to get into a deeper one.
Right. So with the chromosomes, they found out that they were getting rid of half of the genetic material in a chromosome, or not genetic material. Half of the material was proteins, and then the other half was the DNA, right? So they found out later, after realizing, like, okay, that's a pretty big part. Like, we're getting rid of 50%. What are these proteins doing? And then they found out, well, the proteins also are the ones that end up deciding which genes get activated.
Yeah, they're catalytics.
Right.
Yeah.
So the genes end up being these dumb blueprints where the proteins are like, okay, here, what were we trying? We were trying to build a chicken. Turn this on, turn this off. You know, X, Y, and Z. So
it always makes me think of, like, as though life were like a blob, like a Ditto from Pokemon. You know, and the proteins are just like clicking on the thing, so then the pink sludge starts forming into a particular thing.
It's true, but that's really cool.
Yeah, so because of that, that's why that movie, to me, just since I was a small child, because I watched it maybe when I was 11, and even then it resonated with me. I was like, okay, that's the future. I can see that. That's scary. I love it. Right. And because it's so many, I mean, aside from the scientific aspects, the ethical aspects of it are, I think that mountain is much larger than anything else, because you can't fight against science in terms of the progress that it makes. It's an amoral push in whatever direction you're trying to get it for. But now, how exactly is it that you go about classifying people that haven't had the same opportunities? Because Now the socioeconomic gaps between people are immense, and they translate themselves not just in money but in actual genetics, because a parent that has more money can buy a nicer child, quote unquote, and somebody who is just a godchild has to just deal with the dice that were laid out upon them. And that's something that any of us, being all of us godchildren in the sense that what they mean in that sense, we all have to deal with those kind of issues. And even us right now have to engage with the genetic lottery. We don't do a really good job of categorizing how one goes about placing emphasis of equity in terms of, okay, this guy can do really, really well by himself, and this person can do okay, but they need quite a bit of help. It's like, how exactly do we go about engaging all of those aspects? And that movie, it opens your eyes to the how in the slight future those kind of situations will only get worse.
It always scares me, well, not scares me, but makes me feel like we do all these scientific pushes to, create, better humankind, whatever. I mean, what if we get to that point where you can create the perfect human being that's adaptable to any job or whatever? I feel like you'll get that mechanistic, why not just be a machine? And then where's the real growth and potential and the meaning of doing any of this,
Yeah, wouldn't it be easier to engineer a machine than it would be to engineer a human?
And then in that case, we have machines do stuff, and then there's no reason
for humans.
But then, what's the point of the machines doing it? They have no
reason. Yeah, because where's the output the output that they're doing?
Who's going to appreciate it? At the end of the day, be like, oh, that's good, you did better this time.
That is quite the paradox of appreciation.
It's the paradox of just knowing that, okay, if we get to the point where we can make everybody perfect and the same, we lose that kind of
necessity for perfection.
Right. We lose something there.
Yeah. And I think that all of that speaks for itself as to why that's such a good movie, right?
It's a fun movie. It definitely gets you thinking. I definitely remember enjoying it, although I remember wanting to watch it again, but not I guess I just never got the opportunity to. But yeah, I might have to delve back into it. That's for sure.
It's great, guys.
They have a remastered HD version. I can't.
Oh yeah, dude, it's been 20 years. I'm pretty sure that they've done it. They do it for movies that maybe 20 people have watched.
Right.
Well, and as far as my honorable mention, I'm gonna keep it simple and say that it's Synecdoche, New York. If you're here at this episode so far and you haven't seen our Synecdoche, New York episode, you can go check out why that's such a high honorable mention. Right there. Take an hour and really, really explore what we mean by that.
Or just watch the movie.
Oh, that's true too. Do both.
Do both.
Yeah, do both.
All right. On to the next topic would be
TV series. The
sweet.
most existential TV series. So we're flip-flopping it back to you, man.
All right. Let's see. For TV series, I would say Black Mirror.
Ooh.
This is the future we are in right now, where our phones are the first things that we touch when we wake up, the last thing we touch before falling asleep. Radiant, seductive screens we so lovingly, endlessly gaze upon. Much like you're doing right now. Welcome to a future where our true reflection is only revealed once the screen goes dark. Welcome to the darkness. I hope you find it enlightening.
So I think this is one of the most existential TV series going on. Honorable mention to Westworld, but we've done a pretty
extensive little look into that one
in our previous episode, or 2 episodes ago. It's an episode in there.
Yeah.
But I have to give it to Black Mirror for just really taking a microscope and taking a concept, an existential concept, and just beating it to death. As I would say.
Yeah.
I think my favorite episode that I felt was super existential in that one was the episode where they have the VR episode where they have a character who's traveling the world and
What is that one called? Endgame or something like that?
Playtest is kind of a techno-horror romp. It's a video game-themed episode.
What's the game? What do I do?
Well, I'm sorry. Keep going.
Definitely. I think it was season 2, episode
2, I think, or 3.
5.
I don't know.
But yeah, the character is traveling the world, has to get home, but he's ran out of money, so he picks out an odd job. So he becomes a game tester, and apparently it's this company that makes all these groundbreaking, cool game experiences. So he goes in there, he's gonna try out VR, which at first they advertise as AR, augmented reality, where they're like, okay, this is gonna be layers on top of, reality, and they give him an implant.
So they lied.
Do they lie? I think they go and they be like, hey, you want to try something else? And he's like, okay, cool.
Oh, right, they do. That's true. It is layered, isn't it? Oh.
But I think they lied too, because I remember like watching it, I was like thinking still layers on top of reality, where you don't realize in the end
But he never left that white room, right?
Yeah,
he never left that white room. So did he ever? So he didn't have any real recollection of what that mansion was.
It wasn't even the white room. It was where he met the guy, right? I think it was where he met the founder.
It was in the white room. It happened the moment that after that girl left and he took the pictures. Right afterward, because he didn't turn off the cell phone, it from that moment on he started having the epileptic seizure, and that's when the VR was just a hallucination on his part.
Wow.
Yeah, it's messed up, right?
I have to go re-examine that episode.
It's ridiculous.
I've watched it a couple of times, but I always show people that when I'm introducing them to Black Mirror.
That's the beauty about an anthology like Black Mirror, is the fact that you can come in from any avenue you want. If somebody's kind of squeamish, you don't want to show them the first episode, because good God,
no one wants me not want to
watch
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched the whole episode. I wasn't proud of it.
Just gritted my teeth through it. So because of that, like I said, you can take anybody, even somebody who is a bit of a technophobe and might not enjoy those kind of high-minded what-if situations because it might freak them out. You can show them more lighthearted ones.
There lighthearted
What's a lighthearted one?
Black Mirror.
People in the comments, tell us which is a lighthearted Black Mirror episode.
I don't think there's a lighthearted Black Mirror episode. I'm trying to think.
I mean, I laugh in a lot of them, but I'm kind of a weird person, so I don't think. Once again, I don't want like to be the arbiter of reality, because then people would be laughing at tragedy all the time. I can't think of anything
where I was like, "Oh, that was pleasant. That was fun." It definitely. I think they're not doing their job if they don't make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, is the moral that the future will always be unpleasant in some way?
Perhaps.
Quite the existentialist question.
It's not always set in the future, too.
Oh, it's true. It's always kind of set either to like a left timeline, like a timeline to the left.
Yeah, some alternate thing. So it's a fun watch. I think you can jump in anywhere. I'd say start at season 2. I think they really
caught their stride.
Yeah.
Even episode 2, season 1 started catching their stride with the 20 million tickets, or the with the voting one where everyone's on the treadmill.
Oh.
And the entire history of you, that's the one that sold it to me. The one where the guy went straight up Sherlock Holmes on his wife and found out that child wasn't even his.
That's true.
Oh man,
that's crazy.
That was something else.
That was crazy.
It's like, is the truth really worth all that? Is the truth really worth knowing all of that? That's a question we leave to you.
Definitely, Black Mirror is something that will always give you those existential challenges. Leaves you thinking a lot. I remember showing some people some episodes, and it's just like, if you don't like going down that path, it could be kind of scary. But still, I think it's
you with some light trauma.
It's necessary for your growth.
Of course, yeah. That's why they call it growth pains.
Growing pains.
Yeah, growing pains. Because anything that pushes you to that next level will take you out of that comfort zone.
I saw a cool quote today. Man cannot grow without suffering, because he's both the marble and the sculpture. So
Right. And
interesting.
chipping into yourself
Chipping.
will always hurt.
Making yourself better, though.
Yeah. I think
what's your
my most
Yes.
existential
Yeah,
animated
not
show
even
will be-
animated, just
Oh,
series.
sorry, yeah, not
Yeah.
series. That would have to be The Sopranos.
To reveal himself.
I warn you, do not do it!
Everybody who's ever seen The Sopranos is probably cheering right now because they totally understand where I'm coming from. From an outsider looking in who might have never seen The Sopranos, you could kind of be questioning as to how I could say that. But
I've never seen it, so I thought like Godfather when I hear The Sopranos. Like if you've ever watched Godfather.
yeah. But it's nothing like that,
Nothing
really.
like that.
No, it shows the banalities of the mafia life. It kind of shows behind the curtain kind of situation in terms of what it means to be a mafia don, what it means to have to run a criminal enterprise, and the stresses that come along with that, and the benefits, because he does have a good time from as things
So more
go
like
along.
Godfather. What's the last one?
Part 3, yeah.
Part 3,
Is
where
Godfather-
Michael Corleone has to he's older now.
Yeah,
and
but it's not like all like following a 70-year-old decrepit man. It's like Tony still has all of his faculties. He's still there, you know. He's at the top of his game as far as where he is in terms of the hierarchy that he exists in. But at the same time, because of all of those stresses and his own past and genetics, he has to eventually begin seeing a therapist. And that's kind of a big catalyst of what it makes the show interesting, is the fact that you get to delve into both the subconscious and conscious musings of a mafia don. And once you begin seeing what it is that they think about and what drives them to be the kind of people that they are, it opens your eyes to how easily anyone can devolve into such a person, because all they really want is to do good for their family.
Right.
And unfortunately, they're all doing it from an angle that they know best how to do, and that's criminality. And unfortunately, criminality fosters criminality, and those kind of abhorrent behaviors continuously make you want to do more of them, because it was hard the first time, but it's a little easier the second
Becomes
time.
a part of you.
Exactly, right.
The gaze into the abyss.
Yeah, it's kind of like an evilly warped what's the word? Oh my goodness, how am I completely blanking on this? Hedonic treadmill. It's like an evil hedonic treadmill where you just get used to the evil that you're doing all of the time, to the point that it's just normal. Oh, breaking a guy's leg because he owes me $5,000? Well, of course I'm gonna do that. I'd be a fool not to do that.
Did you break his leg?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, but did you kill him though? No. And that's the thing, is that the capacities and parameters to what it means to be a good person, and the kind of leeways that you will give yourself, begin to gray out more and more. And because of that show, it's beautiful. HBO just knocked it out of the park in terms of all the deconstructions and characterizations of everybody, and how everyone plays a part in the hell that is The
existential
Sopranos.
crisis in that of, like, does he have kind of an identity kind of issue?
His existential crisis comes from the fact that he started one day suffering from blackouts, like anxiety-ridden blackouts, and he doesn't exactly understand where they're coming from. And they need to begin delving into his past family life, because his father was also a mafioso, and he was exposed to a whole bunch of things in his childhood that he began to repress. And as you know, like a big macho guy doesn't like the concept of having things that aren't right out in the center, right? He's the kind of guy that is like, I don't care what anybody else thinks of me, and of course everything that I am is out here. So having any sort of depth, any sort of vulnerable depth to him, it just abhors him automatically. And we see how he goes about fighting against those contradictions, and of how every time he tries to fight against the progress that they make in therapy, he goes and has another blackout attack. Yeah. And then from there, that's just Tony's characterization. Everybody else has their own pathologies, and it kind of just builds, like I always say, they're nodes and networks that just devolve into hell for each other. And it's a wonderful microcosm for you to be able to see the kind of life you don't want to be leading for yourself. And I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all I gotta say as far as The Sopranos goes. That show, if you haven't seen it, again, watch it, come back to me, and we can talk about it all day, because man, as far as honorable mentions for myself, I'm gonna have to say The Wire. The Wire, absolutely, just home run out of here. The only reason I didn't pick it from The Sopranos is because it isn't as existentialist to my mind. Just because
it is
okay.
under the like really subtly.
See, it's because the main character in The Wire is Baltimore. It's the city.
Yeah,
that's the main character. Everyone else is just a supporting character for the devolution of Baltimore.
Right.
And while in The Sopranos, everyone is a driving character in the devolution of Tony Soprano.
I felt The Wire was super existential when they introduced that whole chess concept and how it played. How the guy teaches the kids in the hood how to play chess.
Everyone's a pawn. It's
right.
Like, and the king stay the king.
And then it plays like that's how the whole series goes down. And even in some deaths, in major deaths in that show, where you see a guy only able, like, he's shooting.
He's only
right
able to shoot
left.
sideways.
Yeah, sideways,
yeah.
And he gets killed. You know, because he
just
can't.
like a pawn.
Just like a pawn, man.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I thought that was a beautiful.
Yeah,
written...
there's no hierarchy of quality here. It's just what's coming to my mind as we goes along, and you know.
I feel you.
Yeah, you could spend your time and be wonderfully well paid for doing either one of those shows.
All right,
we're back in a new setting. We got bored of the old one, so we instant transmissioned over here, and here we are sitting again.
Can you hand me my drink?
Oh, for sure, dude. Here you go.
Yeah, new drinks.
Yeah, new drinks. Little
healthier.
Little maybe. It's got more sugar than the last
At least
one.
mine is. We got some wheatgrass in this. It's a chartreuse.
Mine's got straight up caffeine, so I'm here for you.
All right, where were we?
So the last couple ones before we instant transmission back here, we did movies and then we did TV shows. Is that right, viewers? I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah. So now we're doing video games.
Video games, correct. And I'm pretty sure it always starts with you, my friend.
All right, video games. I have to give it to Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh shit.
Because not only was it just a badass game to play, just like the whole, I just felt like just moving around in that thing is really natural. The whole gameplay
of that game was beautiful.
Definitely, it's just a fun play. But furthermore, the storyline was just crazy. So if you aren't familiar with Horizon Zero Dawn, it follows a girl.
Aloy.
Aloy. This storyline is really complicated. All right, Aloy is.
Spoilers, by the way.
Spoilers ahead.
Yeah, spoilers, big ones, because this is still a new game. I don't feel that bad about the movies. I don't feel that bad.
It came out last year, 2017, 16. I played it last year actually,
and
so that's 2017.
And so did I. I bought a PS4 last year to play this game.
Just to play it, huh?
So I'm pretty sure it came out last year. Viewers, you let us know. Maybe we're just
I feel like it came out 2016.
Either way, still pretty young. But anyways,
that
was enough time for you to move forward in the spoilers in case you don't want to listen to them.
Aloy lives in this post-apocalyptic world, not quite Fallout, but a different variant where humanity has regressed back into Neolithic times, I suppose.
Yeah,
what would you say?
Straight up tribalistic.
However, it's kind of like the story goes that during our time, we developed AI so advanced to the point that the AI becomes self-aware and starts turning on us.
Yeah.
So we gather our top scientists and they create a system which is going to basically nuke the planet. It just destroys the planet and destroys the the bad AI with it. However, it is like it's going to wipe out all humanity, and that's the only way that they found out to preserve humanity, so that they create an AI, a sympathetic AI that would
Gaia.
Gaia system that would basically nurture the new civilization that would you'd create like these test tube babies, these Adam and Eve babies that
You just come out of
from the
vaults.
genetic
Yeah.
material. After a while, when it feels like the Earth is come to a place where it might be inhabitable again, and then re-inhabit the Earth with animals and people and all that stuff. So it's almost like it's so meta because it's like they created their own god in a sense.
Essentially,
I remember I was talking to my friend who loaned me the game, and I was just like, whoa, is that what happened? It really begs the question of, what if we created our own god and created ourselves in a way, and we totally forgot about that. I thought it was really interesting, and I think aligns with a lot of Eastern philosophy. But Aloy is the product of that. So she is a direct clone of one of the top scientists, but her clone mother or clone counterpart.
Her clone, literally.
Her
I mean, like,
clone.
no, just her primer, like her original.
The source.
Yeah, the source.
She lived like 200 years ago. So when Gaia finally makes her, clones the scientist's genetic material to make her, it's 200 years later. And so
People have forgotten.
Yeah, so by this time civilization has been out there for a little bit, and they've been rebuilding. So Aloy comes in the scene, and people, you have to think of like tribalistic,
It's more
period.
like the Mesoamerican, kind of like, there's some people that are tribes, and then there are some people that are more like confederations.
Right.
Like the Karja, like they managed to be able to bring in other tribes, and then
It has to be like some Bronze Age shit at this
totally.
point.
But with a little bit of technology here and there, because there are some tribes that aren't as fearful of technology
Right.
as the Nora are, who are the main tribe that Aloy is from. They're
Aloy
extremely
is,
technophobic.
not born, but she's found by the Nora tribe, who are afraid of all things technology and basically worship those places in a sense.
Yeah.
So she grows up feeling like an outcast, or she's literally an outcast.
She is an outcast. She is ostracized from
Right.
day one.
And the story, kind of to fast forward, a bunch of stuff happens, but essentially when these scientists created this system to redo life, I suppose, they also put in a failsafe. They thought sometimes you get life wrong.
Yeah.
Just like, the Jurassic period and all that stuff. And sometimes you need a meteorite to reset shit and allow for, a better, like, you clear the board and start over. So they had this other program as a counterpart to Gaia's, Hades. Hades is the god of death, I suppose.
Yeah, in Greek mythology.
Hades,
Yeah.
Hades, basically.
This whole game is just nothing but Greek mythology.
Yeah. Hades basically is a program that was created in order to, if Gaia sent out, people, animals, and things started going awry.
It started going into a positive feedback loop where like the environment couldn't accept,
sustain it.
Yeah, sustain itself. Yeah.
Hades was supposed to just
be a genocide program. Be like
genocide program.
Yeah.
Reset everything and start it over. So
because there was a clear plan, as opposed to the amoral processes that are nature. In this situation, Gaia had a presupposed plan, which was we try to make the Earth habitable again for humans, right? So as opposed to the way that it happens on Earth, where it's like we've had 5 cataclysmic events of extinction, right? But those are all accidents. it wasn't like all of those 5 cataclysmic events happened in order for us to be able to be a thing. It's just that as a result of those cataclysmic events, things had to niche themselves out to the point that we are right now. In this situation, Gaia and Hades manufacture the cataclysmic events.
Right.
So, yeah. It's
So by the time we find our hero Aloy, she basically, Hades has been unleashed when things are kind of going right. Gaia doesn't need Hades to run, but some
Hades is having like an existential crisis almost, where it's like it wants to work anyways.
Right.
So it starts having aberrations.
Yeah, you're right, because its whole purpose is to destroy. So it wants to destroy, even if things are going right, because if it doesn't, then its existence is
futile. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't need to exist anymore, and in a way, it preserves. It seems like it wants to preserve its existence by continuing to destroy and creating this cycle.
And I would imagine that its sub-programmings would probably make it so it always wants to be there to check if it goes awry. Because we're presupposing that because there's humans now and they're kind of coinciding with the animals, that it's going right. But we never know whether later on in the future a creature could become so ridiculous that humans can't handle it. Like, for example, there's already creatures that are gigantic dinosaur-looking things with rockets shooting out of them.
Oh yeah,
you know, like
in the game.
In the game, yeah. And gigantic thunderbirds and stuff like that. So it isn't like the Earth is going like tippy top, right?
Yeah, that's true. But for the most part, the humans are handling it, because the cool thing in this game is that the vestiges of all the technology and all the AI are kind of there in their alongside. So you're seeing this advanced technology alongside these people who are pretty much definitely primitive in their understanding of it. And you find out later that Gaia had introduced non-biological life forms in there to kind of prime stuff, before she introduced.
They're supposed to be filtering and like pretty much cleaning up like the grass.
Right, cleaning up the environment before introducing biological life forms. And after a while, I think what happens is there is kind of an issue where everything becomes self-aware in a sense. Like Hades becomes self-aware because initially it was supposed to be a subservient program to Gaia, and Gaia was supposed to be like, all right, Hades, do your job. But Hades creates its own identity and it's like, all right, I just want to destroy stuff. That's what I do.
Remember, but it was actually that was actually a catalyst made by the CEO guy that ruined the world in the first place.
Right.
And then he said, I don't want anybody to know that I messed up the world so bad. So he literally tries to destroy everything.
Right.
So that he's the one that causes the aberration in Hades, which then just naturally compounds itself very, very quickly to the point that we could call Hades to be sort of like self-preservationist now, where it's like its destruction is its being, is its core, cornerstone. Right. So because of that, it can't let go of it in any sort of way.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, existentialist up the yang in every direction.
Definitely. You can take the story so many different ways. And I thought, from that meta angle of us creating our own gods.
Just the identity crisis of Aloy, of knowing the fact that she's a clone. She has no mother. She has no father. She just is, right?
That too.
And to be put in the exalted position of the protagonist is, while having no core genesis, is something that doesn't happen too often. It's very cool.
That's true. Her superpower is kind of suffering. She suffered through a lot in the early years, and it made her strong. And and
that's pretty much what makes you level up in the game, is your perseverance. The further you go, the more you level up, and the skills that she learns are extensions of the skills she already learned when she was growing up. So it's never like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden this new move is so outside the bounds of what she knows.
Also being open-minded, because since she's not afraid to go in these technological places, she's able to find out how to manipulate the machines around her.
Her lack of presuppositions gives her more power than everybody else around her.
So I thought that was a really big treatise on the state of like humans. Basically, like, you can be a superhuman just because you know more.
Right.
You know?
And especially in the world that we live in where it's more technocratic, you know, everything, the technical knowledges that you hold are the things that make you more highly reputable, essentially. Because in the game, for the most part, most people don't know that the little triangle that she has in her ear is the thing that allows her to have that third sight, or like that third eye.
Right.
And everyone around her is always so amazed, like, how are you able to find these things so quickly, right?
It's magic to
It's
them.
magic, right? While to
But
her,
she just has greater understanding.
yeah, she understands what it's coming from, and it's she integrates it into herself.
The metaphor for that is crazy too. It's just that extra perception because of that knowing, in a sense,
and accepting.
Right.
That's those two things.
But everybody else, like when she tries to explain this to her tribes people, they just don't get it. It just reminds me of the cave allegory by Plato, you know, where the prisoners in the cave are seeing the shadows on the walls, and they think that's reality. And then Aloy is that prisoner who gets out and sees the world for what it is and tries to come back and tell the prisoners, like, oh no, there's more to this. The shadows are illusions, and there's way more to, you know, there's more information out here. And they just cannot comprehend it because all they've known. And in the game, when I was playing, I used to love walking up to Nora and just like hearing what they would say about something that had happened. And someone would be like, oh, I went into the forbidden place, where the forbidden places where there'd be ancient technology, which is our technology now, essentially, a little more advanced.
Yeah.
And they'd see something that would frighten them, and they'd be like, I'll never go there again. Oh my God. You know, instead of trying to understand, their ignorance scared them, and they never go back and try to figure out what
they
what
become
it was.
their fear, as opposed to just accepting the fact that yes, it's a scary thing to look at things that are unknown. Of course, you'd be a fool not to be afraid of things you don't know about. But at the same time, to be so petrified by the unknown that you never want to seek any further knowledge on it essentially cuts you at the knees. And that's why the Nora are always facing so many issues from the Karja, because the Karja have integrated technology a little more as opposed to them. They've although they're still Neolithic, as you said, they in a lot of their aspects they are able to expand much faster, and they don't feel as isolationists because they don't fear as many things as they do.
There was a third tribe that was super into the tech.
Right. I believe, weren't those guys also conquered by the Karja?
They were, which was weird. But the Karja were
they're just warlike.
warlike.
They're just warlike.
So it kind of goes to show.
Might is right, as Pascal said.
But definitely a good game. I would highly recommend it. I think it's definitely been my favorite game to play so far. Is that zombie game, The Last of Us? I think that was a fun play too. I think Last of Us 2 is coming out, but not so existential. I'd have to give my existential
honorable
mention to the Everything game. So it's a plane passing over, but anyways, the Everything game is basically it's a weird game, but it has to be the most existential thing you'll ever play.
Yeah.
Where you start out as
a random object.
A random life form. I think you're always a life form at least.
I think you might I'll always start as an animal. Yeah, I think you might.
And so you go around, and there's no, like, they don't give you instructions, and you just walk around, and you'll find these thought bubbles, and they might tell you a new thing that you can do. Then you realize that you can shift your consciousness from that animal to a different animal. Then soon you realize you can spread your consciousness between two animals.
Between subjects and objects eventually too.
Right. And then, even houses or trees, all that stuff. Then you find out my favorite thing was going smaller and smaller and smaller. Right. So I'd become, like, say, a snail, and then I'll become a bacteria in the pond.
On the snail, yeah.
Yeah, and then in there I'll become like an atom, and then from there I'll become a cork.
Yeah. From there you literally fall into the two-dimensional like the world of forms, essentially. It's like the platonic world of forms.
You just hear the vibrations. Like you just hear like all these noises,
and you can
go even deeper than that, and it becomes a whole world in there. You find out there's galaxies.
Oh yeah, that it reverts in and of itself. It's
Yeah.
like going deeper into the world of forms puts you in another universe.
In another universe itself, then you find out, inside that cork was a whole galaxy of people, life forms, planets, galaxies in itself, and you just
keep going back and forth between that circle of
and
realities.
the whole time, there's various parts where the philosopher,
Alan
Watts, you get some Alan Watts commentary, which I think reintroduced me. I remember I had been at a party once.
Hey.
Excuse me. I don't mean to interrupt.
All right.
So your honorable mention. What's your honorable mention, man?
Going back, I think we did talk about the in the last clip. We talked about the everything game. I think we had a pretty good portion, so I'll just continue in there. In the everything game, it's the idea that you can be anything, right? And it really speaks to that Eastern philosophy of
what is it? Non-dualism.
Non-dualism. Yeah, we've discussed non-dualism in a couple of episodes now, and the everything game really gives you that experience of non-dualism. It's the allness being expressed as an eachness, as you know that everything is one in a sense, but you get that feeling of you're all of it in the game. You're all of it, and you can be all of it, but you can be at any moment expressed in it as an eachness, right? You're just a rabbit or the blade of grass, or you can be all of it. You could be a whole island, right? And move around and do all the things that
and you can go through seasons, as you traverse the oceans and mountains and stuff, come and go at the time.
It's pretty rad. And Alan Watts, he has like some commentary in there as you're playing the game.
Difficult to say what the subject matter of this seminar is going to be, because it's too fundamental to give it a title. I'm going to talk about what there is. Now, the first thing, though, that we have to do is to get our perspectives with some background about the basic ideas which influence our everyday common sense.
And he's talking about all these
essentially
concepts, non-dualism concepts, and I was saying earlier that got me back into Alan Watts because I was introduced to the philosophy of Alan Watts at a party where someone just randomly asked me like, "Oh yeah, what do you believe in?" Or I don't know, it was something like that. And then he was like, "Oh, this is a weird question we asked me at a party," and then we just talked. He's like, "Hey man,
that's the kind of question I'd ask you.
You should check out Alan Watts." I remember, all right, I wrote it down, and later I checked it out, and I was like, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. And then I tripped once, and then I was like, okay, I know what he's talking about now.
Yeah.
Then I finally understood Alan Watts and what he meant.
Because his entire philosophy is just the entire destruction of the I, and and to also destroy the presupposition that this moment is all there is at any given time.
Right.
When in reality, it's one long chain of events that cause any one particular moment that you're noticing to occur. And that's something that in the everything game it really takes into account, because you can move from one, as you said, from one either subject or object to another continuously, and even if you let go of the game and you let the game play itself, the everything game will begin playing itself by itself, because you as the player character are also just one aspect of everything.
Yeah.
And even without you, everything can still run just fine.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that part of it. Gotta love it.
Of course, dude, that's life. That's the city life.
I think that part too also expressed the subconscious and conscious kind of mode of existence that you can have, because there's a lot of things that go on in your experiences being you that you're not in control of, and you're probably in control of and aware of a tiny sliver of all the things that go on, right? So I thought that kind of thing in the Everything game. If you idle for a while, your character will just start doing stuff that the character does, right? And in the same sense, you realize that happens with you. You go to sleep, your body just doesn't stop existing because you're not aware of it. It keeps on doing what it should do.
And not only that, but it's doing very, very intensive processes that you have absolutely no idea that are happening.
Right.
It really goes to show how small the ego is in terms of what it is that is the driver in all of those instances.
The ego is almost a mask.
Yeah.
For the total experience of consciousness. But yeah, the Everything game.
Yeah. What an honorable mention. If you've never played it, please play it.
I only made it the honorable mention just because it didn't have that dramatic plot of discovery that Zero Dawn Horizon, but it's still worth it, the experience of playing. It's pretty cheap too. I think
it's like 15, 20
bucks.
Yeah, thereabout. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get it.
It's on Steam.
PC.
It's on Steam and it's on PS4 now. So check it out.
It's on PS4?
Yes.
Sweet. Awesome.
We say face facts. We talk about encounters with reality, as if it was a head-on meeting of completely alien agencies, and the average person has the sensation that he is a somewhat that exists inside a bag of skin, a center of consciousness, which looks out at this thing and what the hell is it going to do to me?